I found the forms in Stephanie's tote bag. Designer leather, left behind in my guest room. Minnesota Judicial Branch Form GC301. Petition for appointment of guardian. The sticky notes laid it out. Asset calculations. Filing timeline. $2 million in assets available for immediate liquidation once guardianship is granted. My daughter-in-law planned to have me declared incompetent. I photographed every page with my phone, each sticky note, each calculation. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. She'd expect confusion. I'd play confused, and I'd document everything. Like where this is going, subscribe and let's push the story further. I joined the Minneapolis Fire Department in 1987, 23 years old, fresh out of training, assigned to Station 7 in North Minneapolis. The first thing they taught us was documentation. Every call, every decision, every piece of equipment used. Chief Morrison would stand at the front of the bay, incident report in hand. If you didn't write it down, it didn't happen, he'd say, tapping the paper. Your report protects you, protects the department, protects the truth. I took that lesson seriously. Maybe too seriously, according to some of the guys, but my incident reports were always complete. Times, observations, witness statements, equipment serial numbers. I documented everything. 32 years later, when I retired as captain of Station 7, that habit had become who I was. I met Eleanor in 1985 at a community fundraiser for the fire department. She was volunteering at the registration table, organizing donation forms with the same precision I'd later use for incident reports. We talked for 3 hours after the event ended. She worked as a medical records clerk at Hennepin County Medical Center from 1985 until we married in 1986. We both appreciated order, systems, proof. We married in 1986. Small ceremony, practical budget, saving for what mattered. In 1987, we bought the house. Lake Minnetonka Craftsman. 3 bedrooms, 3,200 square feet, 100 feet of private shoreline. The seller wanted $195,000. I offered $180,000 cash, every dollar from overtime shifts. He accepted. Every dollar came from overtime shifts. Double shifts during holidays, covering for guys with families while I was still young enough not to mind. Eleanor never complained about the hours. She understood we were building something. The house needed work. Original 1924 construction, solid bones, but decades of deferred maintenance. The hardwood floors were scratched and water-stained. The stone fireplace had loose mortar. The kitchen cabinets hung crooked. I refinished the hardwood floors myself over 3 months of weekends. Stripped, sanded, stained, sealed. Eleanor picked the finish. Dark walnut. Still looks good today. The stone fireplace collapsed during the 1998 ice storm. I rebuilt it brick by brick that summer, matching the original craftsman style. Took me 4 months working evenings after my shifts. I documented the process with photos at each stage. Insurance required it, but I would have done it anyway. Jason was born in March 1989. He would sit on the porch steps while I worked, watching but never asking to hold the hammer. When I offered, he'd shake his head and go back to his book. I didn't push. Not every son wants to follow his father into manual work. He chose medical device sales after college. Good money, clean hands, respectable career. I told him I was proud. I meant it. But something in his eyes suggested he didn't believe me. Eleanor came home from her annual physical on a Tuesday in March 4 years ago. The doctor had found something on her pancreas, pancreatic cancer, stage 4 by the time they found it. She fought for 18 months. I documented everything. Medical appointments, medication schedules, symptom logs, insurance claims. The oncologist said my records were the most thorough he'd seen from a family caregiver. Eleanor smiled when he said that. She knew why I did it. Control. When everything else was chaos, I could control the documentation. She died on a Tuesday morning in April. I was holding her hand. I wrote down the time, 6:47 a.m. The nurse said I didn't need to. I wrote it down anyway. The week after the funeral, I filled 3 notebooks. Medication schedules she'd never need. Appointment times that wouldn't happen. I kept writing anyway. The documentation habit I'd started in 1992 intensified. New York Times crossword completion times, Sudoku scores, memory exercises, brief observations about current events, all handwritten, all dated, all filed chronologically. Currently on volume 87, the basement became my archive room. I installed industrial shelving, a commercial dehumidifier, a climate control system maintaining exactly 68 degrees and 45% humidity, 30 years of banker's boxes, organized by year and category, medical records, financial statements, property maintenance logs, fire department service records. Eleanor used to joke that I kept records like I was documenting evidence for trial. I'd tell her I was just being thorough. She'd smile and say, "Honey, if it's worth doing, it's worth proving you did it right." I didn't know then how right she was. Jason married Stephanie in 2015. They met at a medical conference. She worked as a paralegal at a family law firm. Smart, organized, professional. I respected those qualities. She transitioned to wellness consulting 3 years into their marriage, sold supplements through some multi-level marketing company, started an Instagram account, posted photos of green smoothies and gratitude journals, called herself a family wellness advocate. 8,000 followers watched her manufactured life. At Thanksgiving dinner, Stephanie leaned close. "Have you thought about what happens if you need care someday, Bill? The cabin alone must be worth quite a bit now. I notice things at holiday dinners." The way her eyes tracked around our house, lingering on the lake view, the original craftsman details, the property boundaries. She asked questions about my retirement accounts, about estate planning, always framed as concern. "Just want to make sure you're protected, Bill," I answered politely, kept my observations to myself. Jason would nod along when Stephanie talked about wellness trends, then changed the subject to Viking scores when she left the room. He seemed happy enough, or maybe just conflict averse. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. I finished Monday's crossword in 11 minutes. Recorded the time in volume 87. 4 years of Mondays, average 12 minutes. Still sharp. My retirement routines kept me sharp. Daily crossword. Times recorded in my journal. Average completion, 12 minutes for Monday through Wednesday, 18 minutes for Thursday and Friday, 25 minutes for Saturday, 35 minutes for Sunday. Consistent for 4 years. No degradation. I collected antique typewriters. Started after Eleanor died. I replaced the ribbon on the 1956 Smith Corona. Each key required exact pressure. Too light, nothing. Too hard, the striker jammed. Predictable, controllable. Something about their mechanical precision felt soothing. 17 machines now, 1920s through 1970s. Royal, Smith, Corona, Underwood, E-Beam, Selectric, all fully restored, all functional. I replaced ribbons, cleaned mechanisms, adjusted tension springs, fine motor work requiring steady hands and mechanical aptitude. Once a month, I typed letters to Eleanor's memory, different machine each time. Last month's on the Underwood, still doing the crosswords, still keeping the house, still here, filed them chronologically with my journals. Nobody read them. That wasn't the point. My bank accounts stayed at First National. 38 years with the same institution. Patricia Holmgren, the branch manager, knew me by name. We discussed market conditions, interest rates, investment strategies. She handled my cabin mortgage refinancing last year. Better rate, lower payment, smart financial decision. My Vanguard retirement portfolio held $800,000. Fire department, pension rollover, 457B contributions, careful stock investments over 3 decades. I rebalanced quarterly, harvested tax losses strategically, maintained age-appropriate asset allocation, 70% bonds, 30% equities at my age. Conservative but growing. The financial statements lived in labeled folders in my basement, every transaction documented, every decision justified in my notes. Eleanor bought me a desktop scanner in 2015, said I needed to get with the times. I learned to digitize documents, maintain Excel spreadsheets tracking blood pressure readings, medication schedules, crossword times, formulas calculating averages and trends. I scanned the property tax bill, saved it to the cloud folder labeled Taxes 2024, then filed the original in the banker's box marked 2024 Financial. 2 copies, 2 locations, nothing lost. Dual system redundancy. Physical originals in banker's boxes, digital backups in password-protected cloud storage. Metadata timestamps corroborating my physical filing dates. Nothing left to chance. Nothing left undocumented. The lake house appreciated over 30 years. Purchased for $180,000 in 1987. Current value as of 2024, $2 million. Not speculation. Recent comparable sales in the neighborhood. Patricia at the bank confirmed it when we discussed the refinancing. The northern cabin on Leech Lake, bought in 1995 for $140,000, now worth $350,000 as of 2024. I winterized it myself every November, drained the pipes, secured the shutters, checked the foundation. Spring opening every April. Maintenance logs documented every visit. 2 properties. Combined value, $2.35 million. Built through overtime shifts and careful decisions. Every dollar earned. Nothing inherited, nothing lucky. My legacy. My proof of a life lived right. I sat in my basement archive room the night I found Stephanie's forms. Volume 87, open on my desk. My 1956 Smith Corona Silent. Super on the shelf behind me, ready for this month's letter to Eleanor. The banker's boxes surrounded me. 30 years of evidence. 30 years of proof. I pulled my financial folder. Vanguard statements showing sophisticated portfolio management. Bank records showing the cabin refinancing. Property maintenance logs showing continued capability. I pulled my medical folder. Annual physicals with Dr. Sanderson for 22 years. Recent cognitive assessments. Perfect medication adherence documented by pharmacy records. I pulled my cognitive journals. Volumes 1 through 87. Consistent handwriting. Consistent puzzle completion times. No gaps, no degradation. Everything organized, everything documented, everything provable. Stephanie thought she could declare me incompetent, thought my age made me vulnerable, thought I'd be confused, compliant, easy to control. She didn't know about the basement, about the 30 years of evidence, about the habits Eleanor taught me. If it's worth doing, it's worth proving you did it right. I closed volume 87, filed it in its designated spot, turned off the desk lamp. I pulled the Vanguard statement showing last quarter's rebalancing, the cabin refinancing approval, volume 87, with this morning's crossword. Stephanie wanted proof of incompetence. I had 30 years of proof otherwise. The archive room held everything I needed, the proof of my competence, the foundation of my defense. Stephanie had made her first mistake. She'd left the forms where I could find them. I wouldn't make any mistakes. I'd document everything, build my case with the same precision I'd used for 32 years of incident reports. And when the time came, I'd prove exactly what I was capable of. I pulled volume 72 from the shelf, November 2022, 2 years before I found the forms in Stephanie's tote bag. The first time Stephanie asked about my medications was Thanksgiving dinner. She set her wine glass down and leaned forward with that concerned expression she'd perfected. "Bill, how do you keep track of your medication? I'd hate for you to miss a dose." I take one blood pressure medication, same time every morning for 6 years. Day. Never missed a dose. Pharmacy records prove it. "I'm managing fine," I said. She nodded, smiled. "Of course you are. I just worry, you know. This house is so big for one person." Jason looked up from his plate. "Dad loves this house." Stephanie touched his arm. "I know, babe. I'm just thinking ahead." That was November 2022. I recorded it in volume 72 that night. Brief entry. Didn't seem important then. By January 2023, she was posting photos on Instagram. Her account showed 8,000 followers. Stephanie Wellness Journey. Pictures of green smoothies and gratitude journals. Then, pictures of my house, my dock, my living room. The captions changed. "Spending time with Dad today. Grateful for these moments while we have them. Betrayal. Family caregiving. Difficult choices. Lisa Kowalski lived next door. Retired elementary teacher. Sharp eyes. The kind of neighbor who noticed everything." February brought an awkward conversation at the mailbox. She set down her stack of catalogs. "Saw Stephanie's post about you," she said. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I told her. Lisa nodded slowly. "You'd tell me if it wasn't, right?" I would, but I didn't know what wasn't fine yet. Just a feeling. Something off in how Stephanie performed concern when others watched. The car keys incident happened 18 months ago, June 2023. I came home from my Tuesday morning at the hardware store. Stephanie's car was in my driveway. She had a key to my house. "Emergency access," Jason had said when he gave it to her. She met me at the door. "Bill, I found something concerning." She led me to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator. My car keys sat on the shelf next to the milk. "You left these in here," she said. "Do you remember putting them there?" I didn't put them there. My keys lived on the hook by the door, had for 30 years, but they were in the refrigerator. Physical evidence I couldn't explain yet. She pulled out a leather-bound notebook, started writing. June 14th, 2023, Found car keys in refrigerator. Subject unable to recall placing them there. Demonstrates concerning memory lapse. The language was wrong. Too clinical. Too precise. Not how someone writes about a family member. How someone documents evidence. She looked up. I'm keeping a journal. Just to track things. Case we need it later. Case we need it? For what? I asked. Her expression softened. Just to help you, Bill. That's all. I pulled volume 77 that night. Checked my entry from June 14th. Crossword completed in 11 minutes. Drove to Hennepin Hardware. Purchased wood stain and sandpaper. Returned home at 10:47 a.m. Keys on hook when I left. Keys on hook when I returned. Till they weren't. I started watching after that. Not paranoid. Careful. There's a difference. July brought financial questions. We were at the cabin for the weekend. Jason wanted to fish. Stephanie wanted to talk estate planning. Have you thought about setting up a trust? She asked. The lake house alone must be worth $2 million now. Closer to 2.1, I said. Proud. Recent comps in the neighborhood. She wrote something in her phone. And the cabin? $350 based on last year's assessment. She nodded. That's a lot to manage on your own. Have you considered professional help? A fiduciary? I manage my own finances, I told her. Always have. Of course, she said. I just mean, as you get older, it might be nice to have support. Someone with legal expertise. She'd worked as a paralegal for 8 years. Family law. She knew the terminology. Fiduciary responsibility. Competency standards. Guardianship protocols. She was building a vocabulary around me, testing how it sounded. The staged incident started in August. Always, when Lisa Kowalski could see. Lisa would be gardening next door. Stephanie would arrive, raise her voice just enough to carry. Bill, did you remember to take your medication this morning? I took it at 7 a.m., same as every morning. But Stephanie's question implied I hadn't. Implied I needed reminding. Implied incompetence. Lisa looked over, concerned, witnessing. I'm fine, I called back. Stephanie smiled. Just checking, Dad. She never called me Dad before that summer. September brought the conversation reminders. Jason visited for Sunday dinner. Stephanie arrived with him. Remember we talked about updating your will last month? She asked. We never talked about that. I think you're confused, Bill. We had a whole conversation. Jason was there. Jason looked uncertain. I don't remember that specifically. Stephanie's expression tightened. You were on that work call. It was just Bill and me. Remember, Bill, we discussed your estate planning? I don't recall that conversation, I said. She wrote in her journal. Bill couldn't remember our conversation about estate planning. Concerning memory gap. I pulled volume 82 that night. September entries showed no such conversation. Every visitor logged. Every phone call noted. No estate planning discussion with Stephanie, but she documented one anyway. Jason started changing in October. His phone calls shifted. Less about Viking scores, more about my well-being. Stephanie mentioned, You seemed confused last week, he said. I wasn't confused. She said you couldn't remember a conversation about the cabin because that conversation never happened. Silence on the line. Then, Dad, maybe she's seeing things you're not. She's around you more than I am. I'm around me all the time, I said. I know when I'm confused, but his voice had that uncertain rise, that questioning tone. Stephanie's influence bleeding through. By November, he was using her exact phrases. "We're just worried about you. Maybe it's time to think about next steps. You might not be seeing what we're seeing." I showed him volume 84, my daily journals, crossword times, cognitive exercises, bank statements showing the cabin refinancing I'd completed in August. Sophisticated financial decision requiring mental acuity. He flipped through pages. "This is great, Dad. Really. But Stephanie has medical research. Studies about cognitive decline. How people don't always recognize their own symptoms. She's not a doctor." "No, but she's been researching elder care, guardianship law. She wants to protect you." "From what?" I asked. He didn't answer, just closed the journal and changed the subject. I started documenting everything after that. Not just daily routines. Stephanie's visits, her questions, her staged performances, times, dates, witnesses present. December brought more Instagram posts, photos of her bringing me groceries I didn't need. Her follower count had grown to 8,400. Captions about the emotional burden of watching a loved one decline. Her followers commenting with hearts and prayers, building a narrative, creating a public record of devoted caregiving. I told myself I was imagining patterns. Grief made people suspicious. Eleanor's death left me alone. Maybe I was projecting. So, maybe Stephanie really was concerned. Then came the cabin weekend, a month ago. We drove up Friday afternoon. Jason wanted to fish Saturday morning. Stephanie wanted to relax. I wanted to check the foundation before winter. Saturday evening, I was on the deck. Jason had gone to town for supplies. Stephanie was in the guest room, thin walls in the cabin. Her voice carried through the open window. "Ah, the timeline looks good for March filing," she said, phone pressed to her ear. "We just need the medical documentation in order." Silence while she listened. "Dr. Chen said he'd provide an assessment if we bring him in." Her voice dropped lower. "Independent evaluation showing diminished capacity. Then we filed the petition." I stayed frozen on the deck, watching the lake, listening. "He won't fight it," she continued. "He's too proud to admit he needs help." That works in our favor. Quick hearing, emergency guardianship. Then we can start liquidating assets before he realizes what's happening. The call ended. I heard her footsteps inside. I stayed on the deck until my hands stopped shaking. That night, I pulled volume 86, started a new section, Stephanie's campaign, dated entries going back 2 years. Every incident, every staged performance, every witness, pattern recognition, fire investigation training. When you see enough fires, you learn to spot arson. This was arson, deliberate, planned, executed with legal precision. I drove home Sunday, told Jason I wasn't feeling well. He looked worried. Stephanie looked satisfied. I spent the next 2 weeks watching, documenting, cross-referencing her journal entries with my actual activities, finding the gaps, the fabrications, the manufactured evidence. She described me wandering confused on dates I was at fire department reunions with witnesses. Forgetting medication on days pharmacy records showed I picked up refills, making dangerous decisions when bank records showed methodical financial planning. Every entry contradicted by documentation she didn't know existed. Then last week, she left her tote bag in my guest room. Designer leather, expensive, kind of thing she wouldn't normally forget. but she was in a hurry. Jason called saying they needed to leave early. She grabbed her purse. Left the tote. I found it that evening. Minnesota Judicial Branch Form GC 301. Petition for appointment of guardian. Sticky notes with asset calculations. Filing timeline. Medical evidence needed. $2 million in assets available for immediate liquidation once guardianship is granted. I photographed everything, put it back exactly as she'd left it. She returned the next day. Oh, I forgot my bag. So scattered lately. Performing. Always performing. I handed it to her, smiled. Confused old man who didn't notice anything wrong. She thought I'd be easy. Thought age made me vulnerable. Thought documentation was just an old man's quirk. She didn't know about the basement, the 30 years of evidence, the habits Eleanor taught me. If it's worth doing, it's worth proving you did it right. I closed volume 87, filed it in its spot. The archive room surrounded me. 30 years of proof. Stephanie had spent 2 years building her case. I had 30 years of evidence to destroy it. 2 weeks after finding the guardianship petition, I set the table with Eleanor's china, the good plates with the blue rim pattern she picked out in 1988, cloth napkins folded the way she taught me, pot roast in the center, vegetables and rolls on either side, the same recipe she'd taught me in 1989. 3 hours at 275 degrees, carrots and potatoes added at the 2-hour mark. Proof. Lisa Kowalski arrived first. She lived next door for 15 years. Retired elementary teacher, sharp eyes that noticed everything. "Thanks for having me, Bill," she said at the door. "My pleasure. Been meaning to have you over." Jason and Stephanie pulled up 10 minutes later. I watched through the window as they sat in the car, talking. Stephanie gestured. Jason nodded. They were rehearsing. I opened the door before they knocked. "Come in. Hot roast's done. Table's set." Stephanie smiled. "Smells wonderful, Bill. Is that Eleanor's pot roast?" "Same recipe." We sat. I served. Normal Sunday dinner conversation. Jason talked about his medical device sales territory. Stephanie mentioned her wellness business was growing. Lisa asked about my week. I finished the Sunday crossword in 32 minutes, I said. Not bad for a 78-down clue that stumped me. Lisa laughed. "You're sharper than I am. I gave up on Sunday puzzles years ago." Stephanie set down her fork. "That's something I wanted to discuss." She reached into her bag, pulled out a leather-bound notebook, not a spiral notebook from the drugstore. Professional, expensive, the kind lawyers use. "I've been keeping track of some concerning patterns," she said. Her voice shifted, softer, therapeutic. "I think we need to talk about them." Jason wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared at his plate. "What patterns?" Lisa asked. Stephanie opened the notebook. "I've documented several incidents over the past 8 months. Times when Bill seemed confused or made decisions that worried me." She read from the first page. June 14th. Found car keys in the refrigerator. Bill couldn't recall placing them there. I remembered that day, 18 months ago. Keys on the hook when I left. Keys in the refrigerator when she showed me. July 23rd, Stephanie continued. Bill forgot we discussed estate planning the previous week. Couldn't remember the conversation at all. We never had that conversation. August 9th, left the stove burner on after making coffee. I found it still running 3 hours later. I don't use the stove for coffee. I use the electric kettle. Same one for 6 years. Lisa's mouth tightened. Her hands gripped her napkin the way she probably gripped her red correction pen when a parent lied about homework. Stephanie turned pages. September 17th. Exhibited signs of spatial disorientation while driving to the cabin. Took wrong exit twice. I know the route to the cabin. Driven it for 29 years. Never missed the exit. Jason finally spoke. Bah! Dad, maybe we should discuss some options. Professional management, that kind of thing. His voice rose at the end, turning statement into question. Corporate hedging. Stephanie's language coming out of his mouth. What next steps? I asked. Stephanie leaned forward. We think you need help managing your affairs, Bill. Professional help. It's not safe for you to live alone anymore. Lisa stiffened in her chair. I saw her hands grip her napkin. May I see the journal? I asked. Stephanie hesitated, then slid it across the table. I read, each entry dated, each incident described in clinical detail. Subject, demonstrated impaired executive function. Subject, exhibited diminished capacity for routine tasks. Subject, showed signs of progressive cognitive decline. No family member writes like this. This was paralegal language, legal documentation, evidence for a petition. I found the entry for October 3rd. Bill wandered confused at neighborhood gathering. Couldn't remember names of longtime neighbors. October 3rd was the fire department reunion. 47 witnesses. I gave a speech about Station 7's history, named every captain who'd served there since 1952. Bill forgot to take morning medication. Had to be reminded twice. November 7th, I picked up my prescription refill. Pharmacy records show I arrived at 9:14 a.m. Same time every month for 6 years. The clinical language gave her away. Signs of spatial disorientation. Demonstrated impaired executive function. No caregiver talks like that. Only someone building a legal case. I closed the notebook. Handed it back. I see. Thank you for your concern. I'll think about what you've said. Stephanie blinked. That's it? That's it. But we need to discuss next steps. Professional management. Maybe assisted living. I understand your position, I said. I appreciate you taking the time to document your observations. My voice stayed level, calm, measured. The same tone I used for 32 years giving incident reports. Lisa's eyes met mine. Held. She understood. Jason reached for his water glass. His hand shook slightly. So you'll consider it? Stephanie asked. Getting help? I'll consider everything you've said. Stephanie glanced at Jason. Satisfaction in her expression. She thought I'd capitulated. Thought my calm meant acceptance. She didn't know I'd already contacted Margaret Chen. Didn't know about the photographs of her guardianship petition. Didn't know about my 30 years of documentation waiting in the basement. We finished dinner. Small talk about the weather. The Vikings season. Lisa's garden. Stephanie and Jason left first. I walked them to the door. Think about what we discussed, Stephanie said. We can help you through this transition. I will. I watched their car pull away. Heard Stephanie's voice through the open window. See, he knows we're right. This is going to be easier than I thought. Lisa stayed behind. She helped me clear the table. That wasn't right, she said. Her voice dropped. None of that was right. No, it wasn't. The way she read those entries. Pause. Like she was performing for an audience. She was. Lisa set down the plates. Bill, I taught elementary school for 33 years. I know manipulation when I see it. That journal isn't about helping you. It's about building a case. I know. What are you going to do? What I've always done. Document everything. Build my evidence. Prove the truth. She nodded. Call me if you need anything. I mean it. I will. After she left, I went to the basement. Hold volume 87, wrote tonight's entry. Sunday dinner. Stephanie produced fabricated journal documenting alleged incompetence. Entries contradict events with witnesses. October 3rd. Entry claims confusion at neighborhood gathering. Fire department reunion with 47 witnesses. November 7 entry claims forgotten medication. Pharmacy records show prescription pickup at 9:14 a.m. Clinical language reveals paralegal authorship. Lisa Kowalski witnessed intervention. Recognized manipulation tactics. I filed the volume in its spot. Hold my phone. Open the photos from 2 weeks ago. Stephanie's guardianship petition. Her sticky notes. Her timeline. She thought tonight broke my resistance. Thought I'd accept help quietly. Thought age made me easy to control. She was wrong. I had 30 years of evidence. Pharmacy records. Bank statements. Medical files. Cognitive journals. Witness testimony from fire department colleagues. Lisa Kowalski's observations. And now I had her fabricated journal. Her clinical language. Yeah. Her manufactured timeline. Margaret Chen would know what to do with all of it. I turned off the basement light, locked the door. Tomorrow I'd call Margaret, give her tonight's documentation, add it to everything else. Stephanie wanted a case. I'd give her one, just not the kind she expected. I went to bed early, set my alarm for 8 a.m. Margaret Chen would be in her office by then. I called her at 8:07 a.m. Her voice came through clear and professional. Bill Thornton. It's been too long. Margaret Chen's office number was still in my phone from Eleanor's estate. I need a lawyer, I said. Someone who handles guardianship fraud? Tell me what happened. My daughter-in-law is attempting to have me declared incompetent. I found the guardianship petition in her bag 2 weeks ago. She's been fabricating evidence for months. Silence for 3 seconds. Then, I've defended 17 guardianship fraud cases. Pride. Won everyone. This will be 18. Can you be at my office in 2 hours? I can. Bring everything. Every document you think might matter. And Bill, don't talk to anyone about this. Not Jason, not Stephanie, not your neighbors. Just me. I hung up and went to the basement. The archive room smelled like old paper and climate-controlled air. I pulled 3 bankers' boxes from the shelves. Medical records, financial statements, cognitive journals, volumes 85 through 87. Everything organized by date and category. Everything documented with chain of custody precision. The same habits that made me a good fire captain now made me a difficult target. Margaret's office occupied a converted Victorian in Loring Park. The Victorian had been renovated for accessibility. Ground floor entrance, wide doorways, main conference room where the original parlor used to be. I parked and carried the boxes inside. The receptionist led me to the main conference room. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with Minnesota statute books and case law reporters. Pride, large oak table, whiteboard on the far wall. windows overlooking tree-lined streets where autumn light filtered through. Margaret stood when I entered. Silver-streaked black hair in a sleek bob, tortoiseshell glasses, jewel-toned pantsuit. She'd aged well since Eleanor's funeral, still had that commanding presence that made her seem taller than her actual height. She gestured to the table. "Show me what you have." I set down the boxes. Opened the first one. 30 years of daily cognitive journals, crossword completion times, Sudoku scores, memory exercises, all handwritten, all dated, all filed chronologically. She pulled out volume 87, flipped through pages. Her eyes tracked the consistent handwriting, the recorded puzzle times, the dated entries. No degradation in handwriting quality? None. Completion times? Monday through Wednesday, average 12 minutes. Thursday and Friday, 18. Saturday, 25. Sunday, 35. Consistent for 4 years. She set down the journal and pulled out volume 85, compared handwriting samples from 2 years ago to current entries. "This is remarkable documentation, Bill. Eleanor taught me to keep records. Said, if something was worth doing, it was worth proving you did it right." Margaret's expression softened. She always was the smart one. What else? I opened the second box. Bank statements from First National, 38 years with the same institution. Monthly statements showing consistent financial management. Recent cabin mortgage refinancing. Better rate, lower payment. Completed 3 months ago. She pulled the refinancing paperwork, scanned the terms, ran her finger down the interest rate column. 1.5%, she said. "That's $47,000 in savings over the loan term." She made a note. "That's sophisticated financial planning." I pulled medical records from the third box. Annual physicals with Dr. Sanderson for 22 years. Recent cognitive assessments. Blood pressure management. True. Medication adherence documented by pharmacy records. Margaret spread the documents across the table. "May I contact Dr. Sanderson directly?" "Yes." "And you have Stephanie's fabricated journal?" I pulled my phone, showed her the photos from the dinner, the leather-bound notebook with clinical entries. She zoomed in on the text. "This language is wrong. No family caregiver writes like this. Subject demonstrated impaired executive function. Subject exhibited diminished capacity. This is paralegal documentation." That's what I thought. She made more notes. "I'm sending this to a forensic document examiner. They can determine if these entries were written over 8 months or in concentrated sessions. What will that prove? If the ink flow and pressure analysis shows she wrote all these entries in 3 or 4 sittings, it proves fabrication, premeditation, not genuine caregiver observations recorded in real time." She pulled out her phone, made a call, put it on speaker. "Sarah, it's Margaret Chen. I need a forensic document examination. Priority case. Can you take it today?" The voice on the other end was professional and direct. "Send me high-resolution photos. I'll have preliminary results by tomorrow." Margaret ended the call. She made another call. "Rodriguez, I need background on Stephanie Thornton, former paralegal. Find out why she left Hoffman and Associates." The voice confirmed and hung up. Margaret sat back down. "While we wait for those results, tell me about Lisa Kowalski, my neighbor for 15 years. Fired, elementary teacher. She witnessed Stephanie staging incidents, planting my keys in the refrigerator, performing concern when others could see. Will she testify?" "Yes." Margaret made another note. Lisa taught third grade for 33 years. She could spot a kid faking sick from across the cafeteria. Her testimony about Stephanie's staged incidents will carry weight. What about your fire department connections? Station 7 still maintains contact. Current captain considers me a mentor. My former crew would testify. Good. Professional assessments of your competence matter more than family accusations, especially from people trained to evaluate someone's capacity under pressure. She stood and walked to the whiteboard, drew a timeline across the top, started filling in dates from Stephanie's journal entries. October 3rd. Stephanie claims you wandered confused at a neighborhood gathering. Where were you actually? Fire department reunion. Gave a speech about Station 7's history. Named every captain since 1952. 47 witnesses. Margaret wrote it on the board. November 7th. She claims you forgot medication. Picked up my prescription refill at 9:14 a.m. Same time every month for 6 years. Pharmacy records prove it. She added that to the timeline. This is the smoking gun, Bill. Every entry in her journal contradicts your documented activities. We cross-reference her claims with your actual whereabouts, and her entire narrative collapses. She sat back down. While we wait for those results, tell me about her Instagram account. She posts as a wellness advocate. 8,000 followers. Photos of green smoothies and gratitude journals. Then photos of my house. Captions about caregiving and difficult choices. What's the account name? Stephanie Wellness Journey. Margaret typed on her laptop. Pulled up the account. Scrolled through posts. Her eyes narrowed. These photos have EXIF data showing when they were actually taken. If she posted a photo claiming to check on you Tuesday at noon, but the metadata shows it was taken Thursday at 3 p.m., that proves the caregiving narrative is staged. Will that matter? If she posted a photo claiming to be caregiving on a date when you were provably elsewhere, it shows the manufactured narrative. Performance for followers rather than genuine care. Her phone buzzed. She read the message and smiled. Rodriguez found something. Stephanie was terminated from Hoffman and Associates for ethical violations. Unauthorized client contact. Destroyed her professional reputation among the paralegal community. That destroys her credibility as an ethical caregiver. Does more than that. It shows a pattern. Someone willing to violate professional ethics for personal gain. Someone who researches guardianship law for 2 years while claiming it's to protect you. She stood and walked back to the whiteboard, added new sections, medical evidence, financial evidence, testimonial evidence, timeline contradictions. Here's what we're building. Forensic analysis proving her journal was fabricated in concentrated sessions, not recorded over months. Timeline showing every claim contradicted by your documented activities. Medical records from Dr. Sanderson showing no cognitive decline. Bank statements showing sophisticated financial management. Lisa Kowalski's testimony about staged incidents. Character witnesses from Station 7. Instagram metadata proving manufactured caregiver persona. And the guardianship petition I photographed, that proves premeditation. She wasn't reacting to genuine decline. She was planning exploitation. That evening, my phone rang. Margaret. The forensic examiner has preliminary results. The journal entries were written in 3 intensive sessions based on ink flow and pressure analysis. Not over 8 months as the dates suggest. She paused. This is exactly what we need. Now we arrange your independent cognitive evaluation. With who? Dr. Sarah Patel, neuropsychologist specializing in elder competency. She picked up her phone. Dr. Patel, Margaret Chen, I need a comprehensive cognitive evaluation. Priority case. Client is 78, sharp as they come, but facing fraudulent incompetence claims. How soon can you see him? I heard a voice on the other end. Margaret nodded. She'll conduct comprehensive testing to establish your current baseline. When Stephanie's petition claims decline, we'll have recent professional assessment proving otherwise. How long will that take? 2 days for the full battery. But it's worth it. Her evaluation will be the medical foundation of our defense. She gathered the documents spread across the table, started organizing them into categories. I'm preparing exhibits for court. Timeline, comparing her claims versus your activities. Forensic analysis of the fabricated journal, Instagram metadata, medical records, financial statements, character witness statements, everything organized for maximum impact. When will she file her petition? Based on the timeline you photographed, probably within the next 2 weeks. She thinks you're compliant now, thinks the dinner intervention worked. What happens when she files? We respond immediately with our counter evidence. Yeah. Request full competency hearing rather than emergency guardianship. Present everything we've built. And Bill, we don't just defeat her petition. We expose the fraud for potential criminal charges under Minnesota Statute 60952, theft by fraud, attempting to obtain control of your assets through fabricated evidence and false guardianship petition. That's criminal fraud. The county attorney will be interested. She closed the last evidence box. Go home. Complete Dr. Patel's evaluation when she calls you. Don't change your routines. Keep doing your crosswords, maintaining your records, living your normal life. When Stephanie files her petition, we'll be ready. I stood, shook her hand. Thank you, Margaret. Eleanor was my friend for 40 years. I'm not letting someone steal what you both built. And Bill, your documentation habits just saved your life. I drove home. The lake house sat quiet in afternoon light. Same view I'd earned through 30 years of overtime shifts. Same property Stephanie wanted to liquidate. I went to the basement, filed the evidence boxes back in their designated spots. Old volume 87, made today's entry, met with Margaret Chen. Presented 30 years of documentation. Forensic analysis confirms Stephanie's journal fabricated in 3 sessions, not 8 months. Timeline contradictions prove fraud. Independent cognitive evaluation scheduled. Character witnesses arranged. Counter case built. Ready for court. I closed the journal, filed it in its spot. Stephanie thought she'd won at Sunday dinner. Thought my call meant acceptance. She was wrong. I was just documenting everything, building my evidence with the same precision I'd used for 3 decades of incident reports. And when she filed her petition, Margaret would destroy her. 3 weeks after Stephanie filed her petition, I sat at the counsel table beside Margaret, the banker's boxes holding 30 years of documentation stacked beside us. Courtroom 4B smelled like floor polish and recycled air, the same institutional smell as the fire station ready room before inspections. Judge Patricia Vance entered. We stood. She settled at the bench, gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Her reputation preceded her. specialized in elder law. Hated guardianship abuse. Stephanie sat across the aisle with her attorney, designer blouse, tailored pants. Hair perfect, makeup suggesting stress without undermining her put-together image. Jason beside her in business casual, staring at his hands. The judge looked up from her notes. "We'll hear opening statements." "Miss Chen?" Margaret stood. "Your Honor, this petition represents textbook guardianship fraud. The petitioner has fabricated evidence, staged incidents, and manufactured a narrative of decline that contradicts 30 years of documentation. We'll prove Mr. Thornton is demonstrably competent and that this petition is motivated by financial exploitation, not genuine concern." Stephanie's attorney rose, glancing at his notes. His voice carried less conviction than his words suggested. "Your Honor, my client has documented 8 months of concerning incidents showing progressive cognitive decline. She's requesting emergency guardianship to protect Mr. Thornton from decisions that endanger his safety and financial security." The judge made notes. "Call your first witness." Stephanie took the stand. Her voice carried that therapeutic tone. "Soft, concerned, performed. I've been documenting Bill's decline since last June, finding his car keys in the refrigerator. Forgotten conversations about estate planning, dangerous decisions like leaving the stove on." Her attorney handed her the leather-bound journal. "Can you describe what you observed?" She opened to the first page. "June 14. I found his car keys in the refrigerator. He couldn't recall placing them there." It showed concerning memory gaps. Margaret didn't object, just made notes. Stephanie continued through entries. Clinical language. Subject demonstrated impaired executive function. Subject exhibited diminished capacity. The words no actual caregiver would use. "Your Honor," Stephanie said, "I'm requesting emergency guardianship because Bill can no longer safely manage his affairs. The property alone is worth over $2 million. He needs professional management before he makes decisions that harm himself." Margaret stood for cross-examination. "Ms. Thornton, you worked as a paralegal for 8 years, correct?" "Yes." "At Hoffman and Associates Family Law?" Stephanie's grip tightened on the journal. "Yes." "And you were terminated for ethical violations involving unauthorized client contact?" Her attorney objected. "Relevance?" The judge looked at Margaret. "Counselor, shows she knew exactly what she was doing, and that she's done unethical things before." "Overruled." "Answer the question, Miss Thornton." Stephanie's voice hardened. "There was a misunderstanding about client communication protocols." Margaret smiled. "You researched guardianship law for 2 years while claiming it was to protect Mr. Thornton, didn't you?" "I wanted to understand his options." Margaret pulled a document from her folder. "This is your draft guardianship petition. Mr. Thornton photographed it several weeks ago when you left it in his guest room. It includes sticky notes calculating $2 million in liquid assets available for immediate liquidation. Does that sound like protection or exploitation?" Stephanie's face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." Margaret handed the exhibit to the judge. "We have photographs showing premeditation, Your Honor. This wasn't reactive caregiving. This was planned asset seizure." The judge studied the documents. Her expression shifted. Noted. Margaret called her first witness. Dr. Robert Sanderson took the stand. 22 years as Bill's primary care physician. He opened a file folder. "I've conducted annual cognitive assessments on Mr. Thornton for the past decade. Most recent evaluation 3 months ago showed no decline. Blood pressure well managed. Medication adherence perfect. I reviewed the alleged incidents in Mrs. Thornton's journal. None correspond to any medical issues I've documented. Margaret handed him the journal. Can you identify the date she claims he forgot his medication? November 7th. Dr. Sanderson's voice hardened. November 7th. Mr. Thornton picked up his prescription refill at 9:14 a.m. He's never missed a pickup in 6 years. Not once. This entry is false. Margaret called the forensic document examiner next. Sarah Chen. No relation. She'd analyzed Stephanie's journal. The entries were written in 3 intensive sessions based on ink flow and pressure analysis. Not over 8 months, as the dates suggest. The handwriting shows consistent pressure patterns, indicating rapid composition rather than periodic observation. This journal was fabricated. Stephanie whispered something to her attorney. He shook his head. Margaret called Patricia Holmgren, the bank manager who'd known me for 38 years. She testified about my recent cabin mortgage refinancing. Better rate, lower payment, sophisticated financial planning requiring mental acuity. Mr. Thornton executed a complex refinancing that saved him $47,000 over the loan term. He understood interest rate calculations, amortization schedules, and tax implications. That's incompatible with the cognitive decline alleged in this petition. Margaret set up the easels. Timeline comparisons, Instagram screenshots, forensic reports, October 3rd. Ms. Thornton claims. Mr. Thornton wandered confused at a neighborhood gathering. Mr. Thornton was actually at a fire department reunion where he gave a speech naming every Station 7 captain since 1952. 47 witnesses. Judge Vance's pen stopped moving. She leaned forward, studying the timeline. November 7th, she claims forgotten medication. Pharmacy records show prescription pickup at 9:14 a.m. December 12th, she claims dangerous financial decisions. Bank records show methodical investment rebalancing. Every entry contradicted by documentation. Margaret displayed the next exhibit. Enlarged photographs of Stephanie's sticky notes. Asset calculation. Filing timeline. $2 million in assets available for immediate liquidation once guardianship is granted. Judge Vance's jaw tightened. Lisa Kowalski took the stand. 61 years old, retired elementary teacher, 15 years as my neighbor. Margaret asked about the refrigerator incident. I was in my garden when Stephanie arrived. She went inside. 10 minutes later, she called me over, very concerned. Showed me Bill's keys in the refrigerator, but I'd seen Bill leave for the hardware store that morning. His keys were on the hook by the door. When he came back, they were in the refrigerator. Did you see Ms. Thornton plant them there? No, but I taught 3rd grade for 33 years. You learn what performance looks like. This was performance. Lisa described other observations. Stephanie, raising her voice about medication when I was present. Staging reminders for audience benefit. Performing concern while I was demonstrably competent. I watched Jason's face. He pulled his hand away from Stephanie's. Slow, deliberate, like touching something contaminated. Margaret called me to the stand. I carried volume 87, my hands steady. Mr. Thornton, can you explain your documentation system? I've kept daily cognitive journals since 1992, crossword completion times, memory exercises, current events, observations, all handwritten, all dated, all filed chronologically. I opened the journal, showed the consistent handwriting, the recorded puzzle times. Monday through Wednesday, average 12 minutes. Thursday and Friday, 18. Saturday, 25. Sunday, 35. No degradation over 4 years. Why did you start keeping these records? My wife Eleanor suggested it. She worked in medical records. She said if something was worth doing, it was worth proving you did it right. Judge Vance's expression softened slightly. Margaret asked about my fire service. I demonstrated current mental acuity by answering her questions about my service record with precise dates and incident numbers. The judge made notes. I-day. Her pen moved quickly. Margaret pulled up Stephanie's Instagram account on a screen. Stephanie Wellness Journey. Photos of green smoothies and gratitude journals. Then photos of my house, my dock. Captions about caregiving and difficult choices. Mr. Thornton, were you aware your daughter-in-law was posting these photos? No, Margaret zoomed in on metadata. This photo claims she was checking on you Tuesday at noon. Where were you Tuesday at noon? Fire Department Pension Board meeting, downtown Minneapolis, 40 minutes from my house. The metadata shows this photo was taken Thursday at 3 p.m. Different day entirely. The caregiving narrative is manufactured. Judge Vance's jaw tightened further. She looked at Stephanie. Her eyes cold, Margaret rested her case. Stephanie's attorney called no rebuttal witnesses. What could he say? The evidence was overwhelming. The judge removed her glasses. I've seen guardianship abuse before. This case represents the exact abuse guardianship law was designed to prevent. The petition is based on fabricated evidence. The journal was written in concentrated sessions, not recorded over months. Every alleged incident contradicts documented activities. The petitioner has a history of ethical violations and clear financial motivation. She looked at Stephanie. Ms. Thornton, attempting to obtain guardianship through false evidence is fraud under Minnesota Statute 609.52. I'm referring this matter to the county attorney for investigation. Stephanie's face crumbled. The petition is dismissed with prejudice. Court costs and attorney fees assessed against the petitioner personally. The gavel came down. Margaret gathered her exhibits. Jason sat frozen. Stephanie whispered urgently to her attorney. I closed volume 87, filed it in my bag. 30 years of documentation, 30 years of proof. The courthouse doors closed behind us. Margaret's hand on my elbow. Professional? Protective. Wilson from Station 7 shook my hand in the hallway. Hell of a fight, Cap. Just protecting what's mine. A reporter approached. Oh. Microphone extended. Mr. Thornton, can you comment on the ruling? The judge made her decision. That's all I have to say. Margaret guided me past the cameras. Outside, the autumn air felt clean after hours in that courtroom. Margaret stopped on the courthouse steps. Judge Vance's ruling was as strong as I've seen. Dismissal with prejudice means Stephanie can never file again. The referral to the county attorney means potential criminal charges under Minnesota Statute 609.52, theft by fraud. What happens now? The court transcript becomes public record. Searchable by her name. My phone buzzed. Text from Lisa Kowalski. Saw the news. So proud of you. Channel 5 ran the story at 6. Elder fights back against guardianship fraud. My phone started buzzing before the segment ended. Margaret explained how documentation defeated fabricated evidence. My phone rang again. Current Station 7 captain. Heard you won, Bill. Crew's buying first round at Murphy's. You coming or what? Appreciate it. Maybe next week. I hung up and sat in the quiet house. The lake view through the window. The same view I'd earned through 30 years of overtime shifts. Protected now. Legally secured. But Jason's face kept appearing in my mind. The way he'd pulled his hand away from Stephanie's during the testimony. 3 days later, my phone rang. Jason's number. I answered. Dad, his voice cracked. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I moved out, got a place downtown. Temporary rental, while I figure things out. I waited. My colleagues saw the news coverage. They're asking questions. Bo! I'm telling them the truth. That my wife tried to steal your house, and I was too stupid to see it. You weren't stupid. You were manipulated. I should have known. I should have seen it. You kept trying to show me your documentation, and I kept dismissing it because Stephanie had research and medical studies, and I wanted to believe her because believing you meant admitting I'd married someone capable of that. His voice broke on the last word. Are you seeing anyone? I asked. Therapist? Yeah, started last week. Silence. Then, the door's open when you're ready. I know. We sat in silence for 10 seconds. Then he hung up. I set down the phone and pulled volume 87, made the entry. Jason called. Moved out. Starting therapy. Relationship damaged, but door left open for earned reconciliation. Margaret called. County attorney filed charges. Criminal fraud under 609-52. What about her Instagram? Deleted yesterday, but the screenshots are everywhere. Her followers found out the caregiving narrative was manufactured. Some of them are sharing their own stories about MLM scams and fake wellness advocates. I looked out at the lake, the afternoon sun catching the water. Dr. Sanderson's letter arrived Tuesday. 3 pages, cognitive assessment scores, medication adherence, professional opinion, demonstrably competent. I filed it in the medical folder. I reviewed the estate documents I'd updated during the battle, ensuring the final court ruling was incorporated. My attorney had added the specific protective language. Explicit exclusion of Stephanie Thornton from any benefit, trust structure, preventing future guardian access. The words that would outlive me. The forced sale notice appeared in the paper mid-March. Dina home, 4 bedrooms, listed below market value. Quick sale needed. I recognized the address. 4 bedrooms in Adina. The house that was supposed to be funded by my $2 million, the $47,000 court judgment, plus Margaret's fees. Stephanie couldn't pay. The house had to go. I folded the paper and set it aside. Lisa Kowalski brought over coffee cake the next morning, sat at my kitchen table. Heard Stephanie's house is being sold. Saw that. Jason doing okay? He's working on it. Therapy. Some distance from everything. She nodded. I taught 3rd grade for 33 years. Never saw anything like what Stephanie did. Using laws meant to protect people, turning them into weapons. The guardianship law is supposed to help vulnerable adults. She tried to make me vulnerable so the law would help her instead. Well, she failed, and now everyone knows it. I updated my estate documents the following week. The final protective language. Stephanie Thornton explicitly excluded trust structure, ensuring no guardian could access these assets. The foundation for the fire department training facility donation. The cabin as a retreat for retired first responders. What Eleanor and I built should serve people who protect others, not enrich people who exploit them. The documents were signed and filed. Boy, legally binding. Permanent protection. I sat in my basement that evening. Volume 87 open on my desk. The 1956 Smith Corona on the shelf behind me. I typed on the Smith Corona. Battle complete. House protected. Documentation habits validated. Margaret confirmed you'd approve. Filed with Volume 87. I closed Volume 87, put it in its spot. Tomorrow's crossword. Waited on the kitchen table. Same routine. Same house. The sun caught the lake at that angle that turned the water copper. Same view as 30 years ago. Same dock. Same house. Mine. If this resonates, drop a like and tell me what you think. 6 months after the hearing, I finished Monday's crossword in 11 minutes. The court transcript had been filed in Legal 2024 for half a year now. Recorded the time in Volume 88. Same average as 4 years ago. Same routine. Same house. The basement archive room held 30 years of banker's boxes. Now it also held the court transcript from Judge Vance's ruling, filed under Legal 2024, permanent record of what happened when someone tried to steal my life. Jason called on Tuesdays. We met for lunch at neutral restaurants. Last week, he showed me his divorce filing. Irreconcilable differences. He didn't elaborate. I didn't ask. He'd been seeing a therapist since the separation, learning about manipulation tactics, how Stephanie used his guilt over Eleanor's illness, how she reframed my competence as decline, the way she'd wait until I was stressed about work, then mention you needing help, he said last Tuesday, made protecting you feel like my job. I nodded. Processing takes time. I didn't push. Margaret called in March, asked if I'd speak at her elder law seminar, explain my documentation system, show them how consistent records defeated fabricated journals. I'm not a public speaker, I told her. You're a fire captain who documented 30 years of evidence. That's exactly who needs to be heard. I spoke at the seminar last month, 43 attorneys and social workers. I explained my documentation system, showed them how consistent records defeated fabricated journals, described the warning signs I'd missed at first. 3 seniors waited by the exit, shared their own stories. Family members asking suspicious questions, staged incidents, manufactured concern. I gave them Margaret's card, told them to start documenting everything. One of them called last week. She'd found her son's petition, photographed it, just like I had, said my story gave her courage to fight back. I updated my estate documents in April. The lake house goes to Minneapolis Fire Department upon my death. Training facility for new recruits. The cabin becomes a retreat for retired first responders. My $800,000 Vanguard Portfolio Fund scholarships for children of fallen firefighters. What Stephanie tried to steal will serve the people who protect others. I pulled the 1956 Smith Corona from its shelf tonight. Set it on my desk. Fresh ribbon installed. The keys required exact pressure. Too light, nothing. Too hard, the striker jammed. I typed the date, then started the letter. Eleanor, I found guardianship forms in Stephanie's bag 6 months ago. She planned to have me declared incompetent. Take the house, liquidate everything we built. Your documentation habits saved me. The journals you suggested in 1992. The scanner you bought in 2015, the filing system we created together, 30 years of proof that defeated her lies. Margaret helped, used our evidence to expose the fraud. Judge dismissed the petition, referred Stephanie for criminal charges. Jason's learning, therapy, divorce. Weekly lunches where we're rebuilding trust. I'm speaking at seminars now, helping other seniors fight back. Your partnership gave me tools I didn't know I'd need. Thank you for insisting I prove things right. I rolled the letter from the typewriter, filed it chronologically in volume 88, turned off the desk lamp. Upstairs, I stood on the deck. Autumn colors reflected on the lake. The sun caught the water at that angle that turned it copper. Same view as 30 years ago. Same dock, same house. Mine. Earned, protected, never surrendered.